to be honest, maybe that's the beauty in it. You know, it might not be the industry that people look at from the off and say, oh, that's such a great, sexy industry to go into. But when they actually get into the industry, they don't leave.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a very friendly industry. I mean, I haven't met a nasty market research yet.
So we're here at Trafalgar Square. We're off to go and meet one of our favourite clients, the Nursery Research and Planning. Lucy Foylan is who we're meeting. She's the account director. We've worked on a few projects with Lucy. Really interesting stuff. You might recognise her from the AQR. So yeah, we're here to learn more about the nursery, how they launch, the type of stuff that they do, what they stand for. I'm really interested to learn more about it, and I hope you enjoy this video. See you soon.
Hey, Lucy. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. So guys, I am here with Lucy Foylan, account director at the Nursery Research and Planning. You guys have become one of our favourite clients.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah. So Lucy, tell me about you. Tell me about, you know, how you got into the industry.
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I think a lot of people that work in research are like, I didn't know about the industry, and then I found about it randomly. Yeah. So when I was at university, I did a dissertation during my year abroad in France, and that was based on interviews with women aged between about 70 and 100, and I was doing kind of in-depth interviews with them. And so that was sort of my first, that's interesting, that's kind of fun. And then after university, I went traveling and worked abroad for a bit, and when I came back, I applied for jobs in marketing because I thought marketing seemed like something that was creative, but also you need to be practical and organised, so I thought that would suit me. And I applied to a grad scheme that was for market research, and I got that. So I did a job that was mostly quantitative, but with a bit of qual, and then I realised that that was what I wanted to focus on. So I found a job where I could do just that. And yeah, I've been at the nursery for 8 years now. So.
All right, so let me unpack that. What did you do when you was abroad?
Well, like after university, when I was abroad.
You said you was working abroad.
I worked as a teacher in Greece, like at a primary school.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, not really research related, but all of that,
Teacher in Greece, you speak Greek?
No, it was like an English program, so It was like a teaching assistantship.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
And then you came back, you wanted to get into marketing.
Well, just kind of, generally marketing, so brands and comms and that sort of thing, which is the focus at the nursery as well. So kind of helping brands grow.
That's wicked. You found your way here. Oh, that's amazing. And what do you love about market research then? Why did you stay in it? How long have you been working in the industry now?
I guess about coming up to 10 years. So 10 years. Quite a long time.
Yeah.
That's right. 10 years. So. Well, I mean, agency life specifically, so working in an agency, working in qualitative research, I'm working on lots of different projects. I would say I was a generalist, so I work on kind of FMCG, finance, charity, government, any different project really, but usually with a brands and comms focus, like I mentioned. So I really like the fact that I can dip into these different industries and learn a little bit, and then move on, so it never really gets repetitive or boring because you're always doing something new. And the same goes for the client team. So, working with different clients, you see different ways of running businesses, different ways of working internally. So that's really interesting as well. Another thing I really like, at least again about agency and qual work specifically, is how collaborative it is. We're always, when it comes to analysis sessions, we're kind of building on each other's ideas, considering truths from the sector, but also from wider society and how that fits in, and kind of a bit of gut instinct as well. So I really enjoy that process of working together. And then, as I said, working with lots of different clients is also really good. I mean, at the end of the day, research is there to help clients make the best and most well-informed decisions possible. So anything that you can do to kind of collaborate.
I love that. It's, lots of people talk about the variety. But also what I love about it, and obviously it's different because, I work on the fieldwork side, not a researcher, but having that sort of window into people's lives and understanding, I'm sure you have this as well as you're going through different projects. Those little insights when you're having conversations with people about, hey, did you know that, you know, most people who do this, they actually think something, it's just really interesting.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, as well, I find that some projects that sound like they would be, like, say, I really like coffee, so, a project about coffee, that's right up my street, but actually that can almost be not as interesting as projects that you think, it's about, you know, an insurance product, like nobody really thinks much about insurance, but actually when you start unpacking it, there's all these like weird things going on with like people just automatically making decisions, and when they have to reflect on it, they think, why do I actually do that?
Yeah.
And getting into all of that with people is really, really interesting.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It's also the social, like if you think about it, right? So the decisions that all these brands make that will have an impact in people's lives, some way or the other. It could be very, you know, if it's just consumer stuff, then you might say, it doesn't really matter. But this is having an influence in people's lives. And I guess being part of directing how that happens, it's almost like we're, you know, not controlling society. You know, we're like
behind
the scenes, you know what I mean?
I do. I mean, for me, in my personal motivation, it's more about the thinking. Like, I find my motivation to work in research is more about the fact that I can think about all these interesting things and talk to people about them, and I'm really motivated by that. So obviously you always love to see that your work's having an impact, but for me, even if it is something really small, like, you know, a change in packaging for an FMCG product or something like that, it's more kind of the process for me and uncovering the insight that's the best bit than the end product.
That's all good. Tell me about the nursery. So when did you start here?
I started about 8 years ago, but the nursery was founded 21 years ago, so we're having a 21st birthday this year.
It's a big milestone.
Yeah, it's weird to hear it back, I think, because I think I was here when they celebrated 15, so So it was founded by 3 people who had originally worked in advertising with the goal of improving creative development research, so working with creative agencies, ad agencies, and clients as well. And when I started, the company was still quite small, and that was still a really key focus. But over the time that I've been here, the company's grown from probably about 12, 15 people to more like 35, 40 people.
I noticed when we walked in, I was like, whoa, there's loads of you.
Exactly. So then the focus, the scope of what we do has also changed. So we don't just do creative development work anymore. We do a lot of audience insight, behavioural insight, customer satisfaction research, experiential research, and as well our remit has grown in terms of our quantitative offer, data analytics, different tools that are available to us. So I would say that our approach has always been very bespoke, and the fact that we've grown has actually only really increased our ability to do that. So to offer like multi-stage, multi-methodology projects is it's been good. It's like almost like working in a different company from when I started.
No, I can imagine that a lot's changed since you came. So you said there was 8 people.
I think it was like 12, 15 people.
Right. Yeah. From there to now, I can imagine. So what would you, like, how would you describe your day-to-day role in the business? What's your remit?
So I'm an account director and a qualitative specialist. So my core role is to make sure that our clients are getting really high quality work, actionable insights, and that I really understand their long-term goals and what their business needs are. But the nursery is an employee-owned trust, and
I didn't know that. You guys are employee-owned.
Yeah. So that's like a recent change. So that I think that's actually made a really big impact. There's a much greater focus on employee well-being. We've got like a health and well-being team, an inclusivity and inclusion team, and a social activity team as well. So I feel that there's therefore a greater sense of like cohesion and collaboration across the team. So that's been really good. And there's also been a greater focus on thought leadership and internal research, just to put everybody's brains to good use. So that's been quite a change. But I can't remember what the what you originally asked about, why I brought that up.
What did I actually bring?
Oh, my role. So,
Yeah.
so that means that we're really encouraged, because we're an employee-owned trust, we're encouraged to kind of really take an active role in the business, and they're very transparent about the financial side of things, but also, what the goals for the business are. So that means that at any level, you're kind of encouraged to get involved in the business. So I also kind of speak at conferences and events, and I've been on the AQR board in the past.
I've seen you.
Yeah, so that was something, and I line manage a team. So yeah, it's kind of getting involved in lots of different things.
That's really inspiring, and I think now in this day and age, we're seeing more and more of it. The focus on well-being, on diversity, inclusion. You mentioned like thought leadership. Literally today, I pulled the team together and said, listen, you see me putting together these videos and all of this and trying to, spread messages. If any of you guys have some interesting stuff that you would also like to talk about, let's use this as a platform to get all of our voices out there, because it's important, even whether you stay here or not, giving people that empowerment, I think it's really, really, it's really powerful, All right, going back to the nursery. Sorry, was you going to go?
No, I definitely agree. I think as well, the chance to kind of, for me, like collaboration is such a big thing. So for somebody to be able to come to the table and say, I'm really interested in this, like, what do you guys think, and kind of shape something that is meaningful for a wider audience from that, it's really great to have the opportunity to do that outside of project work.
Yeah, and it works both ways as well. It works for the company, because, the nursery, you having visibility and being out there on AQR boards talking, and doing good stuff, that can only benefit the company, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So, it doesn't always have to be, I feel like a lot of the time businesses look at this sort of extracurricular stuff as altruism or something. It's like it's charity, and so it's like, we'll do that when we can afford to do that, when we've got the time to do that, where actually it can be holistic. It can, both parties can benefit from the same thing.
Yeah, it should be kind of a virtuous circle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Love that. Okay, so going back to the nursery then, what would you say is the thing that makes you guys unique?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say the employee-owned trust kind of thing. So, I mean, definitely doesn't make it unique. I think a lot of agencies are changing to that model, which I think it can only be a good thing. I think as well, I would also go back to this point about our approach being very bespoke. So I've been really happy about that, because I think when I first started and the agency was small, that was something I really loved about it. And I think that's something that larger organizations can struggle to do, is they kind of create models, or they create a way of doing things, and they say, okay, so our client needs this, so apply that model. Whereas with us getting bigger, I feel like there's been a big emphasis on keeping that level of sort of the bespoke product, and thinking about the research objectives and the business needs, and really finding something that is really suited to that client's needs. And I think that the fact that we now have a greater quant offer and data analytics, and that qual has grown as well, and we've got healthcare now as well, it only helps to bring in those different perspectives and different specialisms, to design like really multi-stage, multi-methodology bespoke work.
I think you've touched on something, you've definitely touched on something there, because I've noticed that the larger clients, everything is a lot more uniform structure. This is how we do it, and you can understand it. It's almost like a factory, when it's a carpenter in a workshop, say, knocking out, very unique items. When it turns into IKEA, then it's difficult to do that at scale. Yeah. So the fact that you guys are managing that, that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're still quite small compared to some of the really big agencies, because people have different specialisms. They're kind of, there's only kind of small groups that have each specialism.
I wouldn't call 40 team members small.
No, but yeah. It is big, but it's not like, hundreds of people. I suppose, and I mean, there's definitely good points to having models like that, because then everybody knows they're on the same page and they know what they're going to get. So there are benefits to that. I just think that it's not necessarily the kind of research that I personally want to do.
I'm going to challenge that though, because I see what you're saying, where having that sort of formula is good because everyone's on the same page. But that cookie cutter type of model, does that not actually, see, when I'm training people, I try not to say, look, this is the script. What I try to say is, I'm going to explain to you how this works and why we're doing all of this, and then let you go on your own and create your own script. Because that way, you're actually thinking about it. And so likewise with what you're saying, I just say, this is the model, do it like this, done. Aren't we then stopping people from actually being able to think for themselves and say, actually, I understand how this works, and upskilling them to that higher mastery level rather than just stacking the shelves?
Yeah, I guess it depends on what the outcome you're looking for is. So if it's kind of, I suppose this is more on the quantitative side, kind of benchmarking and having particular, I know in advertising there's a lot of kind of link testing going on where it's like, we need to know that it's hitting these kind of, these parameters in order for it to be not, risky for us to go ahead with it. So I think there are certain calls for it like that. But yeah, I think that what you're talking about, which I totally agree with, is this kind of thing of it becoming a bit like a crutch where it's like, so not the kind of designed products, but more a kind of, this is how we do creative development, for example, so let's just do it that way and let's teach everybody to do it that way. And I totally agree with you, that's not helpful, particularly in qualitative research when the whole point is you're supposed to be bringing in new perspectives and hearing different voices, because otherwise it's just going to be, you will, even if you try and be bespoke, then you're going to get the same results every time.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what would you say are the major challenges that you face when you're trying to conduct your research studies?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's quite a apt time to ask that because obviously the pandemic had a massive impact on the sector, as it did with most sectors. So at the nursery, we found we were able to pivot from a lot, like our majority of our work was face-to-face qualitative research. So we were able to pivot quite seamlessly to online and using platforms like Zoom for discussions and using more kind of online communities and things like that. So that's worked quite well. We feel like we've learned a lot as a consequence, and now as the world's opening up again, it gives us a lot more flexibility and a lot more choice. So people are more familiar with using online and using Zoom and WhatsApp and community platforms and apps and things like that. So that's a real benefit.
Do you think that clients are also more open to doing that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we can see the benefits and drawbacks, whereas before online seemed like a bit like, behind the curtain sort of thing, like, well, we don't know what the risks are and we don't know how open people are going to be. Whereas now, I mean, it offers greater flexibility, and also, as I'm sure you've got a lot of experience with, like with harder to reach audiences or geographical coverage, it's easier online to get a really good
100%.
Mixed audience.
Yeah.
So there are definitely benefits, and now it's kind of about looking at the research objectives, looking at the business objectives, and thinking, okay, what's the best approach for that without the kind of restrictions that we had in place previously. But beyond the pandemic, I would say, I don't know if you've noticed this also, but I feel like we're getting a lot more kind of multiple, like briefs with like multiple sections and objectives. So it's like, we want to know this and this. And yeah. So I think that can be difficult because I think we're naturally curious, we want to help, we want to explore all these different questions. When it's kind of different stakeholders with different questions they want answered, it's just again about being really collaborative with your client and making sure you've got the same end goal in mind and that you've got the same focus. I mean, it's not really our new head of health, Eleanor, was actually saying it's not necessarily about keeping your clients happy, it's about like working in partnership and kind of respecting each other and respecting the fact that like we're expert in that particular area.
Managing expectations.
Yeah.
But no, you're bang on the money with, like, to be honest, so kind of like you said, you originally were a generalist. That was me. When I launched Guinea Pig, there was no niche that I thought was going to be the particular niche to go into, and I actually thought it was a smart move to have the suppliers that I can do any type of project, because then there'll be more work, right? But what's actually ended up happening is, and this is probably in relation to colour of research, but we keep, and maybe also because we took on all the projects that no one else wanted to do, you know? But we've become this sort of like hard to reach audiences, ethnic minority, diverse communities, where it's like the really tricky stuff. And so yeah, more and more, and I think this is great, but as you said, managing expectations. Because I really do think it's great, and I would be a hypocrite if on the one hand I'm banging the drum to say, hey, we need to include these people in research and we need to make sure that these different communities are represented, if then when I actually get those briefs with all the interlocking quotes, I'm like, that's too much, I don't want to do, you know?
Yeah.
But you have to have that balance, and I think, it's like, it's great that clients and researchers are really thinking about this stuff, but when it's like, oh yeah, they have to be this, but also this and this and this also and that also and this also and that,
Yeah, you're going to find the one person in the UK that ticks all those boxes.
Well, we're trying, but yeah, it's a challenge.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the biggest thing then with you guys is.
Yeah, I would say so, because I think it's kind of two sides of the same coin. We want to do that kind of interesting work. Like I said, our ethos is very much to try and find a solution and a bespoke kind of approach that's going to tick all those boxes and answer all those questions. But yeah, managing expectations, collaborating fully, being upfront about what's possible, and keeping the same end goal in mind is really important now more than ever, I think.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right, where tell me about a project, your favourite project, or because I'm sure you've got loads of great projects. So tell me about an interesting project that you guys ran in the last 12 months.
Yeah, so like you say, there's lots of different interesting projects going on, and I do really like the variety, but one that comes to mind is for Emmy, which is one of my favourite clients. That they are a Swiss dairy producer, so they make products like Emmy Cafe Latte and Onken yogurt, and they also make raclette cheese, and they're actually the biggest selling raclette cheese, or they have the biggest selling raclette cheese.
This is the one that we reviewed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's actually one of the things that was interesting about it, because when they initially came to me, I was saying we don't know what the usage incidence rate is. We're not sure how many people we're going to be able to get. So that was actually one of the interesting things, was when you kind of get a project where you're like, I totally see what the business need is. I understand what the research objectives are. I see why this would be really helpful, but are we actually going to be able to get the people that we need to speak that we need to speak to? So that was really great. We were basically looking for people who were already eating raclette, which, by the way, I should say is like a cheese that you melt and then scrape onto potatoes and vegetables.
I had never heard of it, but Carly knew all about it. Oh yeah, raclette. I'm like, what the hell is this? Now that we did it, I've been looking for it.
Yeah.
Like, actually, it looks quite good.
Have you still not tried it?
I still haven't got around, but I will.
Yeah, it was good because we did it sort of winter time, so that's quite a nice time for raclette. But yeah, so we basically wanted to speak to people who already eat it, and then people who were open to eating it and maybe were eating like other hot cheese at the moment. And so in terms of the recruitment specification, we wanted it to be quite targeted, but then also to be flexible, so that we could see as we went along, like, look, this isn't happening. We'll have to speak to more people who are just eating hot cheese currently, because we can't find enough people eating raclette. Because we wanted people eating it in different ways as well. So in the end, we skipped the end, and it was a great success. So we kind of designed a online community that helped us understand behaviour and habits around raclette in more depth, and then we also did a series of online groups that helped us explore a bit more about the brand landscape and product usage, and delve into that a little bit more. So basically, as an outcome, we were able to partner with Emmy to give them insight that would help them grow the market in the UK and progress with their product in the UK. So I was happy, and one of the reasons it was interesting was kind of to touch on what we spoke about earlier, is this idea of, like, particularly in food, it's really interesting because it's very personal, but food is also so social. So I think it's really interesting to talk to people about about their habits.
A lot of the time I can imagine, particularly with food, it's almost like subconscious insights you're pulling out of people, because I couldn't tell you, just without being asked the right questions and to really dig deep, necessarily the reasons why this versus this, or why I would have this at this time in this sort of environment. So I can imagine that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it puts you in a kind of funny situation when you're putting together an insight deck, because you're like, we had one slide where we had like pictures of cheese where it was like a block of cheese, grated cheese, melted cheese, and we were like, what does this mean? And I was like, to go back to like, nobody really expects to end up working in research. I was like, it's weird to think of myself as a young person thinking like, oh, I wonder what I'll be working on like 10 years from today, and like that's the chart.
No. If I go back and think, it was nothing like this. It was nothing like this. I was crazy. Exactly. I was supposed to be in music. I was supposed to be doing this.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But I love it though. I feel it's one of those things where, and I think this is for the industry in general, we've got this, for an industry that helps brands with their branding and their messaging and how to get to the customer, we've got a real issue with doing that for ourselves.
Definitely.
You said you wanted to go into marketing. Marketing sounds very cool, very sexy. Market research.
Yeah.
That sounds like, and it's like banging the same drum, because we've spoken about it for ages. But what is the root? How do we actually make this a cool, an industry that people actually are like, oh, that's what I want to do.
Yeah, it's like get the nerds in to do this. That's what it feels like.
Look at data, and I really want to melty cheese, grated cheese, block cheese. How do you feel?
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. I mean, I think, I guess the brands and comms side of it makes it a bit easier, because that is a little bit more, or it has been previously. I don't really know if it is anymore. I mean, who knows what young people want these days. But
kids.
Yeah, exactly. But that, I guess, has been kind of helpful, because people, the idea of like working with ad agencies and on brands that they see on TV kind of piqued interest. But we do find that once we've then recruited people, they find all sorts of things interesting that they never thought that they would. So yeah,
it's that. To be honest, maybe that's the beauty in it. It might not be the industry that people look at from the off and say, oh, that's such a great, sexy industry to go into. But when they actually get into the industry, they don't leave. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a very friendly industry. I mean, I haven't met a nasty market researcher yet.
Well, we're a good bunch. Well, look, Lucy, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for giving me the time, because I know you guys are super busy.
Inviting me.
Oh, we're good. It's done.